Let's get ready to rumble! I'm just kidding. Let's talk about Emma. Welcome to Think Thing, a channel whose most popular video by far, so far, is about screened Jane Austen adaptations, so I'm doubling down and giving the viewers what they want. Like and subscribe and stuff like that. I can't promise it will all be Jane Austen all the time, but I have some thoughts and I will share them. I know that tier lists are popular on YouTube.
The turtle's an A tier.
But that's not what this will be exactly. I just want to talk about a few adaptations of Emma and where their relative strengths and weaknesses are compared to each other. I'm not going to talk about every adaptation, but I will focus on what I think are the primary ones from my adult life, and at the end, I will actually rank them from my least to most favorite, if that's the kind of content you're into. I recently rewatched 1995's Clueless, which I had not seen since the 90s, maybe even since it was in theaters. And when I saw it the first time, I knew that it was based on Jane Austen's Emma, but I didn't know the story well enough to appreciate the transmogrification. Now that I'm much more familiar with Emma, I see that the adaptation is not subtle. It's actually amazing how much more aligned Clueless is to Austen's Emma than 2005's Pride and Prejudice adaptation by Joe Wright is to its source material. I made a whole video about that if you're curious. Dialogue and character names and the setting are all different in Clueless, but the basic spirit, central conflicts, and fundamental morality of Emma remain completely intact and recognizable. I was also much less familiar with Radiohead's The Bends the last time I saw this, and I was surprised this time through with how heavily the soundtrack relies on it. I'm not complaining, it's one of my favorite albums, but the needle drops surprised me. This movie is silly fun whether you're an Emma stan or not, but the real joy of it is in the ways that it's in conversation with Austen's story. The Frank Churchill character, for example, is great. As Jane Austen stories go, Emma is on the lighter, sillier side, and Amy Heckerling leans right into that vibe, maybe a bit too much. My one quibble with Clueless is how Heckerling chose to keep it so light, so some of the emotional heft is missing, and that's a shame. This is perhaps most evident in the bit where in the original story, Emma is mean to Miss Bates on Box Hill and gets scolded by Mr. Knightley for it.
This was badly done, Emma.
It's such an important moment in Emma's journey out of cluelessness and into maturity, and in Heckerling's film, the moment is reduced to Cher mistakenly, cluelessly, referring to the family's housekeeper Lucy as Mexican when she's actually from El Salvador. Josh chides her for it, but it's not the big moment in Cher's journey that it feels like it should be.
It's an entirely different country.
What does that matter?
You get upset if someone thinks you live below sunset.
And Cher is a popular girl in high school. It seems like there could have been more direct and profound ways to depict this scene if the film was willing to show us some of the darker sides of how clueless popularity in high school can be weaponized against less popular kids. Is this my favorite adaptation of Emma? No, but it does a lot right, and I'm glad it exists. Gwyneth Paltrow might be the most perfect casting choice for Emma out of all of the adaptations. I completely buy her as a beautiful, clueless aristocrat's daughter with a big heart and a lot to learn about real life and real people. Lots of the casting here is spot on, though I also recognize this was the first proper period adaptation of Emma that I ever saw, so how I see some of these characters in my mind is in part based on how this film was cast. I think Toni Collette is my favorite Harriet Smith across all adaptations. There's a lot to like in this one. In part, this is because of Paltrow's charisma, and that her Emma is perhaps a bit less classist than Emma from Austen's story and the other adaptations, or at least that aspect of her character is not shown to us as bluntly. This makes her more likable from the start, but also makes her redemption arc, which is already fairly light to begin with, barely there at all. This is a quibble. Douglas McGrath's film is lovely and set a sort of gold standard for other adaptations to be judged against. Andrew Davies and the team that made 1995's outstanding Pride and Prejudice series for the BBC reunited a year later to adapt Austen's Emma for ITV as a made-for-TV film. This aired the same year as Douglas McGrath's adaptation starring Gwyneth Paltrow. There was a lot of Jane Austen adapting going on in 1995 and 1996. This is officially my least favorite adaptation of the ones I've seen, and while it's possible that it is more faithful than some others in terms of story beats, I think it completely misses the mark tone-wise. The central problem is that I don't particularly like any of the characters in this version. Kate Beckinsale's Emma is appropriately clueless, but fundamentally lacks the genuine compassion and warmth that imbues the Emmas of the other, better adaptations. She's just classist and self-centered here. And sure, that's how Emma is supposed to be. That's central to her arc out of cluelessness and into maturity. But we should, on some level, also like Emma Woodhouse and see her charms and potential. Mark Strong's Knightley is even worse. He's a jerk. Sure, he's an honorable jerk with a moral code, but he's just angry and standoffish in every scene. And there is zero on-screen chemistry between Emma and Knightley, so when they finally fall in love, the emotional dynamic is almost a flat line. Also, there are a few too many references to Knightley being her brother and having held her when she was 3 weeks old. I just don't particularly care what happens to any of these characters. Emma's relationship with her father, which is depicted so sweetly in other adaptations, is reduced to him occasionally waking from naps and being old and maudlin, and her tiptoeing gently around his old and maudlin remarks. Olivia Williams is well cast as Jane Fairfax, and the film could probably have been improved if they had swapped the casting and had her play Emma instead of Beckinsale. Samantha Morton is a good Harriet Smith, but isn't given all that much to work with. It was actually a surprise that I disliked this Emma so much, since I knew the team that made my beloved Pride and Prejudice a year earlier was behind it, but I suspect it's down to the director. In TV, directors are less of the singular creative voice that they are in feature films, and typically it's head writers that carry the most influence over the creative success of a project. So one would assume, with Andrew Davies in that role, this should be great. But so many of my problems are down to directing choices. I know Kate Beckinsale and Mark Strong are both very gifted actors, fully capable of being terrific as Emma Woodhouse and George Knightley respectively, and the dialogue and the story are adapted from an undeniably wonderful source, and we know that Andrew Davies knows how to adapt Jane Austen. But Simon Langton directed 1995's Pride and Prejudice, and that chair was given to Diarmuid Lawrence for this ITV film. So that's my best guess at why I like this one so much less than the others. I actually just watched this 2009 TV series for the first time recently, and it's very good. It might even have turned out to be my favorite adaptation of Emma, except it's just too long. Unlike the GOAT Jane Austen story Pride and Prejudice, which benefits from a lengthy, leisurely pace and story, Emma is better suited to feature-length adaptations. The key difference, I think, is the comparative lack of a brooding and simmering love-hate misunderstanding dynamic at play that takes place over many months. Like its main character, Emma is altogether too silly and flighty a story for a 4-hour adaptation, even a rather good one like this. 3 hours would probably have been the sweet spot. The first episode is actually paced really well, and then it lags in the final 3 episodes, which probably should have been cut down to 2. The cast is excellent. The relationships are believable, and unlike the 1996 Andrew Davies adaptation starring Kate Beckinsale, the main characters are quite likable and have real and obvious chemistry. You actually believe Emma and Knightley could fall in love. There are obstacles and irritating people, but there are no real villains in Emma. Perhaps another reason why it feels like a lighter tale than Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility. Did I mention the cast? Garai is very good as Emma, but Johnny Lee Miller, who will forever be Sick Boy to me, is outstanding as Knightley, and Blake Ritson, who I am currently enjoying on the silly and melodramatic HBO show The Gilded Age from Downton Abbey creator Julian Fellows, is, I think, the best screen Mr. Elton yet. Sorry, Alan Cumming. Yes, it's overly long, but this is how you adapt Jane Austen. I actually don't have much to say about Autumn de Wilde's 2020 adaptation starring Anya Taylor-Joy. I just love it. I guess if I loved it less, I might be able to talk about it more. Taylor-Joy is my favorite take on Emma, Johnny Flynn is my favorite Knightley, and Bill Nighy is my favorite Mr. Woodhouse by far. Mia Goth is an excellent Harriet Smith, and Joshua O'Connor is a very good Mr. Elton. The vibe, the costumes, the humor, the adorable relationships. This one is a bit more stylized than the other period adaptations, and I think that really works for this story, in ways that it very much did not work in the 2022 Netflix adaptation of Persuasion. The heart of the story is squarely in the right place, and all of the flourishes, from the bright color palette to the score and the comparative zaniness, all really hit just right with me. Real quick from the editing station, I just wanted to chime in and say I just watched Full of Lit's Battle of the Emma Adaptations, and her reasons for liking 2020's Emma adaptation the best are absolutely spot on, and you should watch her video for a really good breakdown of what makes that particular adaptation of Emma so great, and her opinions about all the other ones are also very good, so just wanted to recommend that. Before we reveal my final Emma rankings, though you may have already guessed at them based on my reviews, let me take 15 seconds and just tell you about the sponsor for this video, which is Aknitomy, an incredibly neat science art craft store where you can get knitted dissected frogs, anatomical diagrams of the human heart rendered in stained glass, a felted illustration of the human eye, and lots of other handmade crafty science-related art pieces. Knitting patterns are also available in case you want to try your hand at making these yourself. These are handmade by a single artist, so if there's an item that's sold out, make sure to get waitlisted. There will be regular restocks. So, what are my rankings? First, let me be clear, I like all of these at least a little bit. I don't think I would call any of them a bad time, but since ranking things in order of preference is a thing, here's my list. In last place, the 1996 ITV film by Andrew Davies and Diarmuid Lawrence, followed by Amy Heckerling's Clueless in fourth. The 1996 Andrew McGrath film starring Gwyneth Paltrow comes in third place. Then 2009's excellent, if too long, 4-hour series by Sandy Welch and Jim O'Hanlon. And first in my heart is Autumn de Wilde's 2020 adaptation with Anya Taylor-Joy. What's your tiered list of Emma adaptations? Feel free to let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.